Right. Well, let's get started then. So I see quite a few familiar faces, but for those of you that don't know me, my name is Ryan Walensky. I'm the director of the Community Partnership for Children, which is a community impact initiative of United Way of Sheboygan County focused on supporting families with children from birth to 6 years old. We've got 5 panelists here today. Colleen is joining us on vacation from Florida, right, Colleen?
Yes, that's right.
A lot about childcare in Sheboygan County and was willing to zoom in and interrupt her vacation to support this. So thank you for that, Colleen. Quick, let's have each of you panelists just introduce yourself briefly with your name, title, and organization. Then we will get started. So Eric, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, sure.
Mm,
Can you hear me now, Colleen?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Make sure I got it right. Eric Taylor, at Kohler Company. I'm a senior manager of benefits and focus a lot on major strategic projects within the US as well as all benefits outside the United States.
I'm Betty Ann White. I'm an in-home childcare provider.
My name is Jessica Stanford. I'm the director of Big Steps Little Feet Group Center in Sheboygan.
And I'm Susan Kirchner. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Sheridan Dual Language Elementary School.
And I'm Colleen Steinbarger. I'm the executive director of Family Connections, the child care resource and referral agency serving Sheboygan County.
Great. Thank you all very much for being here and agreeing to participate on this panel. So starting it off here, let's reflect on the film a bit. Which moment in the film resonated most with each of you? So each of you will have 1 minute to answer here. We'll start off with Eric.
So the one that really resonated with me was a statistic, and it was the statistic about early education teachers. Their wages are at the bottom 3 to 5% in the United States. And as we just learned and witnessed on the documentary, they have one of the most important jobs in America. And that's shaping the future of our children, our grandchildren, and consequently of the United States as well. And so thinking about that, how can you run a successful business if you're trying to pay your workers at the very bottom of the wage scale? It just doesn't make sense. You're not setting yourself up for success. So early childhood education workers, they need to have higher wages all across the board, honestly. And I acknowledge that's a bigger feat, not easily done though.
For me, it was addressing the social emotional development of children and the toxic stress. I've been in the field now for about 20 plus years, and the change is significant as the years push on, specifically the toxic stress, just the lifestyle. You can come from a upper class family, well educated, but having to haul kids, all over the place. And sometimes they're not able to have steady childcare. Childcare centers shut down, especially through COVID. A lot of your home providers shut down. And there are, because of limited funds, centers have to fill up their classrooms, and just having that many kids in one room can also bring stress. If they had more staff, they could have smaller pods, it would be better.
Two things came out to me and I think it's because of both of my point of views in the childcare industry. The first one was the woman who was so nervous about bringing her child to daycare because they don't know what kind of individual they're going to be with all day. Their child, this person that they have grown and made a part of their life and everything, to give to a stranger essentially is terrifying. And with all of the different stories that we've heard and stuff from different places around the country, it's never a guarantee that those people will be quality people to put your children with. On the other side, the other thing that really resonated again from experience is so many childcare workers need to work extra jobs or have a different income just to be able to put themselves through the stress and everything every day of taking care of all these children.
There were two real quick things that I'd like to speak to. One also was a statistic concerning how at 28 states, in 28 states, it's more expensive to provide your child or your kids daycare, childcare, quality childcare, as it is to send your off to college. I have a daughter who's graduating this year. It really hit home with me, and that was a sticker shock for me. I haven't had child care for 17 years now, and I'm like, I cannot believe that that is what families are facing these days. And those investments that we feel as parents, that if we can't afford to help our children at any stage of that educational continuum, is so expensive and so important. That really blew me away. The other thing was just how important it is during this window of time for, as the child is developing, for us, it's so important for us to be investing in that executive function development to get them ready so they can become a student, so they can become learning, so they can be starting on that first positive step with their school experience. So.
Great. And Colleen?
For me, it was when they talked about the importance of those early experiences and how much brain development is happening. And, when they're in those environments that are responsive and stimulating for them, that is really shaping them to be, individuals that are going to be successful in school and in life. So it's helping to develop that brain. And if we get it wrong when they're so little, then all we're doing is fixing that part that's broken. And I feel like that's really important for everybody to understand. I think that sometimes gets lost in the whole conversation about childcare and why it's important that we support childcare. And I think this is obviously the foundation, and this is why we need to support it. And this is what we need people to understand, that there's a lot of learning that's taking place in childcare, and we need to be supporting the individuals that are providing that care and that learning to those children, because this is our future. These are our future workforce. It's our future. They're just our future, and we need to support them, and we need to help make sure that they're developing where they should be.
All excellent answers. Thank you all very much. So moving on to our next question, which is also for all of you here. Reflecting on the film still, it covered a lot of ground, from a lack of affordable childcare to toxic stress to educators' wages. Can you share more about which of these issues are most challenging here in Sheboygan County and why? And Eric, would you like to lead us off?
Absolutely. Looking at it from an employer perspective, the biggest issue is just the low supply of childcare in all of Sheboygan County. Q3 last year, there was 350 children on a wait list. And those 350, 200 children were 24 months or younger on that wait list. And so if you want Sheboygan County to grow and prosper, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to attract and retain top talent. And that top talent, they need somewhere that's safe, high quality, and available too, and for them to want to come to the area. They do, if that's not available in the area, they're going to go somewhere else. And I'll share a little personal experience. So back in 2018, I was working and living in St. Louis with my family. And then I had this recruiter call me up about a job in Wisconsin, and ended up being a really great opportunity. And we started looking around at different childcare facilities, and nobody had openings. Nobody had openings in the near future. And it seemed to be that there was nothing we could find. And we didn't know anybody moving up here. We didn't know anyone, not that we just didn't know anyone. We didn't know anyone that we would actually even allow to, watch our kids. It was a difficult decision. And so we took a large leap of faith, me and my wife, and decided to move up here. And had we not taken that large leap of faith, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to any of you today, because I wouldn't have taken the job. I would not have come here. And so there's a lot of people who don't take that leap of faith. And luckily for us, we pieced a couple things together, sprinkled a little luck on top, and it all worked out in the end. But there's just a lot of people who are finding opportunities elsewhere, not in Sheboygan County, I feel.
Spinning off that a little bit, I got a phone call just a couple of weeks ago of a man who was looking for childcare for 3 kids. He was trying to move into Wisconsin. He was up in the UP, but because he couldn't, he had to turn down a job at Kohler, actually. And he's like, I have another opportunity, but 3 kids, that's not going to happen anywhere. So I think out of all the things that are addressed, it's not even just the lack of affordable care, it's the lack of any care. And so what's happening, unfortunately, is children are being shuffled into, I call it like luggage in an airport. It's like, I got to keep it safe, but I got to keep moving. And that's the rock and hard place that parents are struggling with.
The issue that we see the most at where I am is the lack of affordable care. Thank you. I keep getting that. The lack of affordable care. We are full. Our wait list goes through summer of 2024, and that's a conservative estimate. We have several people on our wait list that don't even have children yet. They're not even pregnant because they know that the struggle with childcare is so hard right now that they need to be put on the list before they even have a child. Even trying to be the quality care that we want to be for these people, we just don't have the educators coming into the building. No one wants to start out entry level in a childcare whenever you can go right next door to us and work at Quick Trip for much better wages, benefits, not the extra education. So even the people that we are getting are completely green to the field, and we have to train from bottom up, which includes multiple classes, CPR, all this other qualifications to get dollars less than working at the gas station. One thing that came to me was people on daycare assistants and stuff like that. For our educators, in my center precisely, the only people we have on childcare assistants are the teachers that work at our facility. So, I mean, that kind of says a lot to that, I think.
I wanted to say a little bit about toxic stress. As a teacher, I see a lot of this, and I know that changes within the district and the community, there is starting to be some more support, but really as an educator, that is where my brakes are put on time and time again with behaviors with students that are not feeling safe. They don't know how to self-regulate. And as an educator for kindergarten students, I find myself working more on those skills rather than on our state standards, what our district is expecting me to do to prepare our children for assessments to report out to our communities. So, and I know that we would all agree that did COVID have an impact on this? You bet it did. But it's not going to just magically go away on its own. Families are still strapped. Families are needing support. And when my students' families are not feeling supported and they're stressed and they're not able to provide what they need to their own children within the family, it's just like a cyclical conundrum that I don't know, as an educator, it's hard for me I can't fix every family and provide to them. So all I can do is find what community resources we have and try to help them make a connect. And that's only if they're willing and wanting. So it's really hard.
I will just reiterate everything that's already been said. I mean, wages are a huge issue. We already know that. Childcare workers are paid very poorly, and we need to change that for sure. In addition, they are burned out. The ones that we have left in the field are the ones who are there because they truly care and they want to be. And if we lose them, we're in big trouble. We are going to lose them probably if right now we have a lot of quick fixes through ARPA dollars that are supporting the childcare workers. And if those monies go away, we're going to see a lot of childcare programs closing. they're going to have to raise their rates 20 to 40% to cover what they're going to lose in childcare counts. And when that happens, a childcare that's already not affordable is going to be way less affordable, and programs are going to have to close because parents aren't going to be able to afford it. They're going to have to stop working. I get calls as a childcare resource referral agency all of the time from parents desperately searching for childcare so that they can come to relocate to the community to work. And you know, we can't find it. It's very sad. So I think like the teacher supports that was talked about too. Teachers they're burned out. They have a lot of children that have a lot of trauma these days that they're dealing with, and they're not trained. They're not equipped to handle that. When they're trying to deal with 20 children, and one child or two children are, you know, acting out and throwing things across the classroom, it's not easy, and it's hard for them, and it stresses them out, and so they don't have the supports that they need. Also in Sheboygan County, we have a lot of space that should be available to families within the current centers that we have, but we can't provide that because we don't have the staff to fill those classrooms. We have a lot of childcare centers that have classrooms that are closed because of lack of staff. They have classrooms that are not operating at full capacity because of lack of staff. So the wages and the teacher supports and all of that is contributed to this. And that's where I think I just feel like that's a huge impact, because I think we could probably, don't quote me, I have the statistics somewhere, but I feel like if we hired 50 some teachers, we could enroll an additional 140 children into the current childcare programs that we have in Sheboygan County. We lost 155 childcare slots since 2020. None of those were due to COVID. A lot of those were family providers that closed their doors. A lot of family providers are retiring, and we don't see any younger people coming in and wanting to open their homes up to care for children. So we're just going to keep losing it. So.
Absolutely. And we'll touch on some of those numbers a bit more later that Colleen just mentioned, as well as the child care counts program. This kind of dovetails in nicely to our next question here. Colleen, can you speak a bit to how our community is currently working to address some of these challenges and what progress we've made so far?
Sure. So through Sheboygan County, Family Connections was awarded some ARPA dollars to provide some teacher supports and some startup supports for individuals who want to come into the field. So Sheboygan County developed task forces to come up with recommendations for the use of the ARPA dollars. And one of those task forces was childcare, and childcare. The childcare recommendations that we submitted were just under $5 million, and we were awarded $2 million to do some of the work that we've started to roll out already. So as part of these ARPA dollars, we have rolled out teacher retention bonuses and sign-on bonuses for new staff. These are only $500 to $1,000 bonuses that are going to be 1 year only. Next, we're going to roll out startup grants for family providers and group centers. So new family providers or new group centers or even group expansion will have some grants available for that. And then we also will have, we're going to really be focusing on recruiting and retaining the current staff. So we're going to be doing a lot of recruitment with teachers and family providers, and we're going to be doing providing a lot of supports to the current individuals working in the fields, those that are dealing with the children who have some challenging moments or some challenging behaviors. In addition to that, there's a lot of advocacy that's happening locally and across the state. You know, we really are trying to get the state to support some of these programs and put some of these dollars into the state budget. There's the Partner Up program, which is creating a business and a childcare partnership where it's helping families afford the cost of childcare. As an agency, we are offering free entry-level courses to anybody who's interested in joining the field. We have a partnership with Central High School where we have an individual over there instructing students who are interested in joining the field, and they have been provided all of the entry-level courses that they're needed. And now they're going to be placed out in some of the childcare centers in the city to volunteer and to determine if this is a field that they really want to go into. And if everything works out well for the program and the individual, we will see those individuals entering the field. We already have one student that has been hired on at a childcare center in Sheboygan County. And I think the other thing is just a lot of conversations are happening, which is good. We're talking about it. It's out there. It's in our faces. So I think that those conversations that are happening are really amazing. We just need to get more individuals to the table to join in on those conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you, Colleen. And all of those are really exciting and will go a long ways towards supporting the field, but there is no silver bullet. It's a combination of all these different programs to support existing staff, attract new staff. Eric, I know you have been party to some of these conversations as well around childcare in Sheboygan County. Can you share your perspective here?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing we can do is what we're doing here tonight, talking about the importance of early childhood education. So thank you for showing up. And I can speak more to what companies or corporations can do in the area. And there's really a continuum of childcare solutions out there, 6 main ones. The first 3 we really can't even talk about because you need to have adequate supply already in the area, and that's just not here. You can't find what's not there. So then we're left with the 3 solutions that will add supply to the area. And those, because you're adding supply, it gets exponentially more expensive. And so one of the first things,
Eric, I hate to interrupt you, but is your microphone on?
it's
Thanks.
not
You
on,
guys
but
can just
now
leave them
it is.
on. It'll be fine.
Sorry. So the 3 things that you can do to add supply to the area is reach out to a local childcare provider already there to help optimize what they have, provide them some funding. So that'll help maybe expand their hours to meet the needs of your workforce should they have late or early shifts. They can use some of those funds to train teachers or subsidize salaries to get those salaries up to attract more teachers in so that they can open up those rooms that are sitting vacant that Colleen was talking about. And in exchange for that, you can get, priority access, if you will, for your workforce, or you can maybe be provided a discount back for some of your workforce, but still helping out the broader community. The second thing you can do is a more strong move, a bigger move, and that's adding to the community space. And so that could be a variety of things. You could be working with a local school to fill a room that they have vacant that you can bring some teachers into to watch some children, working with schools or working with churches or religious organizations to do the same thing. And you can also be talking with local or even national providers to have them come in, helping to subsidize some of their costs, but have them come in and provide their program here, their proven programs to make that work. And so then the third thing that gets on the very top of the expense scale is building your own or having help with building your own on-site childcare facility for your employees. That's a very large investment, and all these can be very large investments. So what you really have to do is not just focus on what your solution is, but you really got to kind of take a step back and think, what am I trying to solve? What's my solution before you can find your solution there? So that's kind of the order that you need to run in if you're a company looking to help out.
Thank you both very much. Moving on through our pre-prepared questions here. Jess and Betty Ann, you both operate childcare programs and experience these challenges we've discussed on a daily basis firsthand. Could you speak a bit to your personal experiences with some of these challenges and how they're impacting your programs, both in your day-to-day operations and the bigger picture? Let's start with Jess.
Oh, okay. Excuse me.
Microphone.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys can just leave them on. It'll be fine.
The shortage
the one that really speaks to me the most is the staffing, because it's not only like finding the qualified people to work, it's also their children and their families and everything else that's tied together with that. So they're stressed with their families. They're trying to take care of these children who are stressed because their families, and it's all just one big ball of stress. And we try our hardest to teach. We bring in all kinds of like stress management techniques. We try to pamper our staff, and the child care counts money and stuff that we have been getting from the different organizations is helping, but it's still not enough. We have some staff that are working 40+ hours a week, 10-hour shifts with these children, and we're burning out really rapidly. I've been in childcare since 2005, and I have not seen the burnout rate quite as significant as it's been in the last 3 to 5 years. So that is the biggest challenge, I think, with what we've been experiencing. Because I mean, I can fill in for some of the teachers if someone does have a sick day or something, and we want to keep those germs out of the center to keep everyone else healthy. So we try to keep them out. I can fill in, but then all of our other administrative duties are left behind, which then adds to my stress and so on and so forth. And it's a never-ending cycle.
I keep a relatively small childcare program because I was in Sheboygan County for 18 years and then left for a couple of years and came back. So onboarding new children is a stressful job.
Oh, yes.
So I've chosen to do it slowly. But still I work a 10-hour day. And when I started this, doing daycare out of my home, it was because I couldn't find daycare. Literally the places I went to, they were bad. Like you can, I tell informally, like you can't. Anyways, it wasn't good. And so I found myself, I loved my job. I got paid very well at my job, and I had status with my job. And then I found myself that I had to come home and do childcare because not had to, but that's my choice that I made. I couldn't find childcare. In that process, I also helped 7 other women start up in-home childcares. And of those 7, by the end of 2020, only me and one other person was left. Now I coach with other daycare providers, and some of the, things you don't think about is that we work 10-hour days with children. They may or may not nap, or they may or may not nap in sync. So you still run a business though. You still have bookkeeping, you still have taxes. If you have, I hire some people, I have to delegate. I'm a little bit older now. I know how to delegate some stuff. There's still the business behind it. And then DCF has requirements. Young Star has requirements. The food program has requirements, and all of those things come with paperwork. A lot of it has to be done daily. And if you don't do it, you will be penalized and possibly lose some funding. And so between the two of us, if we're not doing our paperwork, we're losing money. So that's the situation family providers are in, along with the centers.
Thank you both very much. It's great to hear that personal experience from you guys. So as the film mentioned here towards the end, childcare teachers aren't just babysitters. It's a lot more than that. They're trained, educated professionals that have the knowledge and skills to support your children's development during that critical period. So Susan, can you speak a bit to the difference you see between children entering kindergarten who have had access to early childhood programs, high quality programs, and those that may have not had the access to that?
Yeah, it's usually pretty recognizable right away with that first week with kindergartners coming into the building in my classroom, the lack of independence that they may have. Maybe they're not able to toilet themselves at age 5, They struggle with dressing themselves, and I don't expect everyone to tie shoes on that first day, but to put a sweatshirt on, a hoodie or something. They struggle with feeding themselves, believe it or not, and it's just a hot mess. So like those kinds of things I'm then having to take on to help encourage their growth within their independence. And along with that goes their lack of ability to express their needs and wants. That language is really missing, and we did have a statistic in the video, I can't remember, but as your socioeconomic background increases, so does the amount of vocabulary that's spoken with the child. It's just astronomical, and many of those children are just not able to say what they want or what they even need at times. At age 5 or 6. Fine motor skills are very recognizable. How to grasp a crayon, whether they're grasping like this, or has someone given the time to them to show them how to hold a crayon or a pencil. Same with a scissor, never seen one before, don't even know what it does. I really need to do a lot of hand over hand with many children that haven't had such an experience. Social emotional growth is also evident. They're not able to regulate oftentimes when things don't go their way. They don't bounce back very quickly, that they have to take a long time in our calming area to work it out, and even have an adult with them to counsel them through that process, because maybe they've never experienced that before. So regulating their own emotions, how to be a friend or kind to someone the same age as them, that hasn't been learned. They may not have access to other children their own age, and therefore they don't know how to interact or even play side by side, that's not how to share, how to ask to collaborate with a turn. Exactly. Of course the academics may or may not be there. I'm more interested, is the child prepared and ready to learn? Because I know once they're ready to learn, we're going to be able to just hit the road running. But if I have to keep putting the brakes on to work on all these other skills, I'm not able to take my students as far as I hope I can.
Thank you so much, Susan. Yeah, it really does set them up for success for long term to not have that delay in acclimating to the academic environment, and it's hugely important. So I do want us to kind of look forward here. I know Colleen and Eric talked a bit about what's currently being done in our community to address the childcare challenges. Let's look forward a little more. What opportunities are you or other advocates pursuing in the coming year to address these challenges and support childcare? Let's start off hearing from Jess and Betty Ann with their specific programs, and then I'll open it up to any of the panelists that would like to add in anything our community is doing.
We are trying to nurture as many future early child care providers as we can. For years now, we've been hosting practicum students from the LTC. We let them work with us for the semester to kind of get a taste of what they would be experiencing in the field. In a couple lucky times, we were able to hire those practicum students. It doesn't always happen that way, but that does happen occasionally. Right now we're helping with North High School has their child development classes that need time in the class. So we have 7 or 8 North High students that come in and do volunteer time. And then I also, anything Family Connections and Colleen tells me to share, I try really hard to make sure I share that. We have advocacy hanging around the childcare. I'm trying to gently start telling some of our parents what we're struggling with and hanging flyers, different kinds of QR codes to send letters to the people who matter that can kind of try to work on fixing this.
Thank you. I've always been involved with leadership. And before I went into the daycare field, my background is in accounting. So what I'm doing currently is I mentor home providers. Sometimes it's just financial to do their bookkeeping a little bit better so that it makes it more profitable for them. Sometimes it's about paperwork. Sometimes it's just what do I do with this child, type deal. Sometimes it's just the unpacking of family having, a daycare in your home. It can get chaotic. So sometimes it's about how do we keep a neat, peaceful home while also doing childcare. I'm excited for the new startup grants that are available for in-home providers, and also they have the classes that are free to get yourself started up. There also Family Connections is doing a mentor-mentee program aside from me. Like they got their own thing going on too. And I think that's really going to be helpful for retaining childcare providers. I have seen childcare providers drop out of the field because they don't see it as profitable, which it can be. But if you don't know how, then it's not. I've seen them drop out of the field because of family stress. I've seen them drop out of the field because of conflict with parents, and they're great providers. Typically people who work well with children aren't also your business conflict resolution kind of people. They can be because you're dealing with it all the time, but they tend to have gentler souls. And sometimes parents can be rough on, especially home providers, expecting too much, assuming we are just babysitting. And you're here anyway, so what's the big deal if I'm a half hour late? I had a meeting. And so I encourage I want to be able to help support all of that to keep our providers, because the home environment, when it's quality, has a huge impact. Being able to have one provider be with your child until they enter school, there's a big impact on that.
Thank you both. Any other panelists would you like to add anything that you are pursuing in the coming year here to support childcare?
I'll just add that, are you able to hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, perfect. I said that we've been doing a lot of advocacy, we share everything that we can with our childcare providers, encourage them to share it with their families. Family Connections, one of our missions right now is really to get out there and help people understand the work that we do and why that's important. Betty Ann and I have been having some conversations, and so looking forward to a partnership or collaboration with her as we try to recruit more family providers. We know that she's going to be a really good asset to us, because people tend to think that Family Connections, that we are regulation, and we're not. We're there to support. And so having a family provider who has a strong base and a strong trust system in Sheboygan County is going to be really good for us to recruit new providers. So we're really excited about forming that partnership with her, and just excited about offering these startup grants to providers to help them get going. The grants when we proposed them, they were going to be $10,000 and $20,000. They're going to we're going to adjust those, or maybe the number of grants that will be available in the coming weeks, but it's going to be pretty close to that amount of money. So $10,000 for a family provider to start up is pretty significant. And I think that that's going to be, a really big help and help some of them cross some of those hurdles that they're going to face. So.
Great. Thank you, Colleen. Yeah, and we will touch a bit on the advocacy portion shortly here, and what efforts, this community partnership for children's making around that, along with our partner agencies with Family Connections, the Family Resource Center. We've got over 20 agencies represented in that coalition. We're really working to educate our community and engage them in advocating for that investment in childcare. From here, is there anything before we get to audience questions that any of the panelists would like to add in summary here? Are we ready for the audience? All right, well then, do any of you have questions for our panelists that we didn't cover that came up during the film, or any of their answers that you'd like them to explain a bit more? Kate's got a microphone here for you if you do.
as you're thinking of questions, round of applause for Ryan from Community Partnership for Children and all of our panelists and all your brilliant perspectives and all of you for being here today on this beautiful afternoon. I was a little worried about the weather compared to our RSVP, but what I'm excited about is it's exactly what you mentioned, Eric. We have to keep talking about this. For those of you that don't know, I'm Kate Baer, Executive Director with United Way. Just popping over, but I had a question. Okay, so it's like so many different things going on. These are such great handouts. The more we can get these in front of individuals, the better, right? Because it really talks about our broken system. It talks about the landscape. I'm trying to be solution focused, and this is really a systems change problem, right? Challenge, because it's not just one thing. I think if corporate leadership can't recruit C3 suite professionals because of childcare, and then you think 30 million more words a child knows if they have had other experiences. It's so complex. So what's the solution? Is it more government advocacy? Is it, you think of the military, it's like, how do we reflect what's happening there where they're subsidizing these high quality programs and see the value of the ROI, I guess, right back in to the military. So I'm curious what the panelists would say about that. Who's the part of the solution? Everyone? How does that look?
So this is something I like, literally, it keeps me up at night. How can I make this work? It can't work the way it is. Like, that is I think one of the things that, this is a discussion and it might be a pie in the sky kind of dream, but first of all, we need to look at what other developing countries are doing. Because in reality, other developing countries are, whereas we might take the lead in our finances and our economic strength and our military strength, they're taking the lead in health, education, happiness. Iran has a higher happiness level than we do as Americans. That's crazy. And then we talk about this toxic stress that is in children. Children are having levels of toxic stress. We're doing something wrong. So that is really, there's a short term and then there's the pie in the sky kind of dream. But really, this work that we're doing is hard, but it really feels like we're just putting Band-Aids on, putting Band-Aids on a sinking ship. We just keep trying to hope we can make it go through.
I just wanted to say something too that kind of piggybacks off of what you were saying with the Band-Aids, and how in the video it also mentioned consider the development of our next generations part of our infrastructure. And really, we need support of our infrastructure development at every level. We need it from the governmental level. We've seen it working, with our military, but we need it at the community. We need it at our industries within our communities. We just need it from everywhere. And we saw that it didn't matter what political agenda you had. Everyone has this common goal for the best of our nation and the best of our community. More importantly, is a great place to start. So yeah, I think it needs to be multifaceted approach and not just slapping a Band-Aid on to hump along.
I think some of it should also, we need to, right now we're under the Department of Health and Department of Children and Families, which is under the Department of Health. I think we need to get underneath the Department of Education. Maybe not take away the Department of Health, but we need Department of Education funding.
You used to be under Education and Workforce Development. So we can't figure it out in Wisconsin. They keep moving everybody. Come to the people.
All right. Hello. Thank you guys all for being here tonight. I have just a general question because I do a lot of advocacy work myself, partnered with Head Start. One of the biggest struggles I have as far as communicating with people, and it's not everybody, But there's a portion of the older generation that seems to all go back to either, well, don't have kids, the woman should stay at home, or other really kind of outdated methods of childcare that don't work anymore. What are your strongest talking points for the people that are kind of in the ballpark?
Well, one of the things that the film brought out is our first 3 years is when our brain is the most pliable, the most plastic, it can be molded. And then the drop off happens at 5, and then as we get older, it becomes harder and harder to learn. And I can say this, I'm 55. And what I will share is that we do have a harder time with new concepts. One of the things I personally struggle with is my peers are a little bit rigid. And unfortunately, they are also the decision makers in our government. So I think, the idea of bringing in new thoughts, new perspectives, looking to other nations who are doing it better than we are, which is hard for Americans to admit that anybody can do anything better than we can. So we just need to have a little humility with that. But fortunately, most early educators are young. So they're ready to learn. They're ready to we just need to supply them with the materials they need, the tools they need to do their job and to do it well.
Thank you. I offered a little turn to the little one because this is an experiential learning. What would you like to share? Tell us your favorite color. What is your favorite color?
Yellow, orange, and rainbow.
Oh,
Like
Can I tell them what my teachers are named?
yeah.
My teachers are named Miss Nicholson and Mr. S.
Nice.
That was awesome and brave. It's hard talking in a microphone.
Allison, real quick before you start, panelists, do you mind if I hop in just with some of the pushback I've heard regarding public investment in childcare?
Go for it.
So I know you mentioned the one, women should stay home and take care of the kids. Regardless of your personal opinions, it's not sustainable. You look at our workforce needs in Sheboygan County, we need women in the workforce. You're not going to have them all stay home and take care of kids. It's just not viable. The other things I've heard are, have we looked at increasing ratios rather than requiring additional staff? I had the same reaction. It was with a staffer of one of our representatives, our legislators, and my response I wanted to give her is, I will lock you in a room with 4 infants, 8 to 10 hours a day for a week, and then you tell me we should increase the ratios. But the polite answer really is, it's an issue of safety and quality. If you have more than that many kids, there's huge safety concerns. And as we saw, it's a critical time in their development. 90% of a child's brain development occurs before the age of 5. We need people that can give them the attention they need and utilize those techniques and tools and education they have to help aid that development and set them up for success. Last point of pushback I heard was, have you looked at other options than government investment, for example, employer sponsored and other things like that, which I say, of course. It's a challenge to convince employers that it is a worthwhile investment. We're lucky that some are exploring that option even and sitting at the table, but it's not a coordinated system that will solve the issue in our community as a whole. Just drawing parallels to our healthcare system, you change jobs, you have to change your provider a lot of times. Same thing would happen with childcare. And so many of these small businesses operate on such thin margins already. They can't afford to provide childcare for their people as well. They can't even afford health insurance for their employees. It's just too much of an ask to ask them to provide that. So we do need some sort of government investment to support the sector.
I heard the same thing, Ryan, last week at the Capitol. All of the same,
Yep.
all of the same things. And the other one I heard was to decrease regulation, which is scary. We have a lot of regulations and some things are ridiculous, I'll admit. But we do need a lot of the regulation that we have right now. So that's not going to fix the problem. You know, I heard the things that, you know, mom should stay home. I stayed home with my children, or, you know, I've had a neighbor take care of my children, and, you know, that's what families can do. And to that, you know, I said, well, you know, imagine if you have a daughter or yourself that, you know, you go to school and you get a degree and now you can't use it, or you're, you know, it's not fair. And not everybody's equipped to stay home, and not everybody wants to stay home, and not everybody can afford to stay home. So, it's really hard to get the message through. There was one other thing I was going to say, and now I don't know what it was, but I heard the same thing. It's sad.
And one of the issues, it's pretty, depending on who you're talking to. If you're talking to some of the workers in early childhood education, they're saying we're not paid enough, right? But then you talk to some of the people sending their kids to childcare facilities, and they're saying it's too expensive. And so the problem isn't going to solve itself, just the community on their own. It's got to have help from the government. But then it's kind of like Colleen was saying earlier, I think, with like ARPA, those funds are going to run out in, what is it, 2026 is when they all have to be spent by. So then where do those funds come from after that? It's not there. That needs something that's a lot more sustainable.
I also heard, I just remembered what it was, that there's always these asks for childcare. And, you know, right now we have like the childcare counts, and when that goes away, that's going to be detrimental. But is it, you know, is it feasible for the state to support that? I don't know. But there are a lot of things that are related to early care and education that cost a lot of money. And one of the individuals we spoke with last week said, you know, when everybody's coming to us saying we need to do this to raise wages, and we say, okay, but then we need to cut these things, they don't want to take the cuts. Like, for instance, Youngstar, you know, every program received $1,000 micro grant for how many years? I mean, millions and millions and millions of dollars were going out to micro grants, you know, like, but they don't want to cut certain little things like that to, I feel like he had this where it's like, we want all or nothing. And sometimes I wonder if there are areas that maybe we can cut. I don't think we should decrease regulation, but maybe we need to look at some of the things that are happening that we could maybe cut, that we could use those funds to support the childcare workers or the programs or the families.
Thank you very much, Colleen. We had another question, Kate?
Hi, my name is Allison. I am your youth services librarian here. So I'm going to get a little specific here because you're all talking about community and how we can work together. So specifically related to libraries, how can we be a better support to early childhood providers and teachers? And what role do you see librarians playing in finding or helping to find a solution?
I'd like to answer that.
That's a good question.
I have loved using the summer reading program as part of my, you know, curriculum with what I do. And I have found that specifically the Mead Public Library has been very supportive. They had toddler time, and I would bring my daycare kids because it's a really rich experience. I want kids to enjoy being at the library. And I had one librarian, when she found out that I was a paid in-home provider, try to tell me I can't come here. And I was like, but then I had another librarian come to my, you know, she advocated for me, like, no, this is what we want. It doesn't matter that they're not her children. I mean, 2 of them were, but the others weren't. And so that was really maybe just like sharing with other librarians, like, we're going to have these people come in and we want them here, but because that is what you did do. And I would be nice to have more providers come in. It's hard I can't speak for the centers, but I can imagine it would be really a tough thing. We see YDC during the summer come in, and that's tough. But you guys have a mobile library, and I'm wondering
No,
if
that is what I was just trying to think of how, like, anything coming here would be
Yes.
impossible. But any sort of enrichment that, like, I know that you guys have like upstairs, the activities in a bag and stuff like that. That kind of things coming to the center, or even just a mobile library day for the families, so they can pick up
Yes.
either before or after school, so they don't have to take that extra time to still go to the library that they don't have already because they have to make dinner and get the kids in bed and everything else, I think would be a really fun thing. Beyond that, just spreading the word and helping with the advocacy of letting everybody know. I've heard a lot about this recently, obviously, because I'm in the thick of it, but even I think Colleen even said recently that the people who are supposed to be hearing this, that need to hear this, aren't. So we need to be just that much louder to get the message across.
Jess, do you have anything to add about how they can support it more, or are you guys?
I think that I'm good.
Great.
And you mentioned, Ryan, you guys have this available? The movie.
Oh, yes, the film is available if you guys want to share it with your communities. The library has it through their Canopy streaming service. So if you have an account with Mead Public Library, go on their website. You can easily access the film through that. If you want to watch it again or share it with anyone in the community, that's great.
Yeah, and maybe having more, little continuous conversations and shows, right? Because I think it's really helpful, these perspectives, and amazing.
We'll dive into that shortly. Kate, any other questions from the audience before we move along?
And I'll share your favorite colors later. If I didn't get to you.
Well, let's have one more round of applause for our panelists who are here. Just to support childcare. I can't thank you guys enough for participating and sharing your expertise with us.
are we gonna do a call to action thing, or?
I'm on it.
Oh, okay, because I
Yep.
have something I did want to share about that.
Oh,
I didn't
perfect.
realize, I thought we were all going to participate. So I'm gonna take this as an opportunity to say something so that the word can get spread around. If someone is an in-home provider, it can be very, very profitable. Very profitable. We could take most of Kohler's employees, so profitable. However, it does take knowing the business of childcare and how to do it. And so if you know of anybody who's that, maybe like me, between a rock and a hard place, I can't find a decent childcare or even any childcare, decent or not, and they're wondering, do I have to stay at home and do childcare? Have them reach out to Colleen, have them reach out to me. I just don't want anyone leaving here thinking, well, I don't want to tell my best friend to go do childcare themselves. It's not profitable. I just had a meeting that said it's not profitable. It can be. And so that's what we're here to help people with. Not to take your employees or anything like that.
Excellent point. All right, so you guys have some handouts on your chairs there. So this information is on those flyers. But I do want to just kind of run through it with you and paint a picture of what our childcare landscape is like in Sheboygan and tell you what we can do about it. So as we've heard from the panelists here, our biggest issue really is a lack of capacity in the childcare sector caused by that lack of staff. Looks like something went wonky with my slide here, but as you can see, Eric mentioned in, I believe it was February, 340 children in Sheboygan County were on wait lists. And many of those are over a year long or more. Some are all the way up to 2 years, which is just insane. Colleen mentioned this number, but since 2020, we've lost 12 programs entirely, which was 155 slots. So it's just continuing to decrease. We've got 31 classrooms that are fully closed or operating at reduced capacity because of the lack of staffing. And the need to hire at least 50 new teachers just to begin operating our existing classrooms at full capacity. I wanted to highlight here on the bottom right, our childcare gap. This was a study done in 2019 by the Bipartisan Policy Center. So the numbers have changed a little since then, but not drastically. So we've got in Sheboygan County, 5,710 children under the age of 5 who would be in possible need of childcare, but only 2,430 available licensed slots. So that leaves 3,230 children potentially unable to access childcare. That's over half. It's just unbelievable that there's that much of a gap, and many of them do rely on family, friends, neighbors to take care of their kids. But again, those are not the trained specialists that we have in these high quality programs that can best support our children's development. And the one thing I want to touch on, the bottom left here, we've talked about already, the low pay is a huge part of the staffing issue. The average teacher makes between $10 and $12 an hour, does not have access to benefits. Shockingly, over half of all childcare teachers are on some form of public assistance. It's just unbelievable that we pay the people responsible for our most impressionable and important members of our society that low. And then this shortage doesn't just impact families, it's certainly a big portion of it, but it's huge impact, as we discussed, on the business sector and our economy as well. Eric mentioned employers are having a lot of trouble hiring. As you guys know, we have a lot of major manufacturing focused employers in the county between Kohler and Sargento and Johnsonville, Bemis, and all these large employers. Second and third shift is unbelievably hard to secure childcare for. That's where we a lot of times do rely on these family providers like Betty Ann. People don't want to wake their kid up in the middle of the night and drop them off at a center. And even if we had that availability, it's an almost unsustainable business model to operate that. The business model itself is already flawed and unsustainable, but especially 24-hour care is extremely challenging to make work. According to the chamber, 78% of those jobs available in the month of February in Sheboygan County were for frontline workers making between $10 and $20 an hour. At that pay rate, it just makes more economic sense for most families to have one person stay home because they're bringing in the same amount of money that they're paying for childcare. So that, again, just exacerbates our hiring challenges as more people leave the workforce, choose not to return. If we look at our economic impact here due to lost wages, delayed promotions, reduced productivity, turnover costs, lost tax revenue, all those other business, household, and tax impact, it's absolutely massive. Just in Sheboygan County, $66.8 million to $101.2 million per year. That's yearly just in our county, all caused by the lack of access to childcare. So let's take a look at what we can do about it. We mentioned a few programs we're working on. The big ask we have right now is the Child Care Counts program Colleen mentioned. So this was created out of those American Rescue Plan Act dollars to provide direct payments to child care programs primarily focused on increasing those staff wages. So if we look at the business model, you guys have a handout on it's titled the Broken Business Model, I believe. By far, the largest expense in operating a program is staffing costs. Most of these programs rely solely on parent fees for their income and to cover operating expenses, which leads to them paying these extremely low amounts to their staff, parents paying a large amount out of their pockets for it, and operating on these razor thin margins that are really not sustainable. The Child Care Counts program helped elevate those staff wages a bit, but it's still not enough. And a lot of centers reported that they wouldn't have made it through the pandemic without that additional support. And I just have to share, like last week in Madison, we were at Advocacy Day at the Capitol advocating for investment in the program. It was absolutely heartbreaking to see some of these early childhood educators, some of who have been in the field for decades, speaking about their personal experiences on the verge of tears, saying childcare counts as what got me off of food stamps. It's unbelievable they've been in the sector that long and still are making so little that they needed this government funding to make enough to not rely on public assistance. So as we mentioned, funding for childcare counts is slated to expire in January 2024. It's going to be disastrous if it does. I don't want to freak everyone out, but we do need to be freaked out about this. I mean, centers have basically explained that If this funding ends, they're going to have two options. They'll either have to reduce staff pay back to pre-childcare counts levels, which is going to go terribly, and we're going to see even more staff leaving the field. And those wait lists that, again, are over a year long already are going to absolutely explode as there's even fewer slots available. I mean, people that are even in programs right now may lose their slots if we lose that many people. Or, as Colleen mentioned, centers are going to have to increase their parent fees to cover the increased operating costs. The average I've heard from ones I talked to was about 35%, which makes it absolutely unaffordable for a lot of families. I mean, at this point, a lot of families pay around a third of their take-home pay in childcare costs. If that goes up by 35%, there's going to be a lot of families that can't afford to do it anymore. So moving along here, what can we do about it? Timing's great. Our state legislature right now is debating our 2023 to 2025 biennial budget. There is a proposal to include $300 million in that budget to continue funding the child care counts program through this next cycle. So what we need to do, all of us, is reach out to our legislators and tell them how important childcare is to our families and advocate for them to approve that budget item. We worked with Raising Wisconsin as an advocacy organization who's been really convening the conversation around this. They have some excellent tools on their website that I can show you guys real quick here. So you can reach out to your legislators. Ideally, a letter is easiest. So they have a great tool I'll show you here. If you go to their website, and these flyers all have QR codes leading to all these different tools for you guys. They have their Engage Your Legislators page. Very top of it, letter writing campaigns. Click on the Family Campaigns portal here. It'll take you to this page. Super easy to do. They have a form letter here. So you'll put in, I've got my address in already. You'll put your address in there. You click Start Writing. It'll take you to this page. It tells you a bit about the process. They have a form letter established already. You'll see it when you scroll down here. And as you can see, just based on my address, it tells me who represents me in our state legislature, and it'll reach out to their offices with this. They've got their pre-written letter for you here and suggest that you include your personal story and message in the text here just before the last paragraph. Once you're done with that, you hit send letter. It'll send it off for to your representative and senator. Nothing else required there. I did this a couple of weeks ago, got a nice email back from the office of my representative. So they do see these, and it's really important for them to hear from a lot of people about how important this is. Otherwise, they do have on the Engage Your Legislators page, they have a tool to call your legislator as well, if you'd prefer to do it over phone or do both. It guides you through kind of how to structure your conversation with them, what to say. And again, sharing that importance to your family, and that we strongly advocate for the inclusion of that $300 million to continue childcare counts. Going back to our slides here. Raising Wisconsin's website in general just has a ton of great resources, so I highly encourage all of you to explore that. They have advocacy toolkits for specific populations like parents or early childhood educators. If you prefer to write your own letter or contact them in some other way, I've got a slide here with the contact info for everyone that could be your representative within or legislator within Sheboygan County. The bottom left there, if you're not sure who represents you in our state legislature, follow that link. You can put in your address and it'll show you exactly who they are and their contact info for their offices. What else do I have? Oh, of course, we mentioned continuing to educate our community on the matter. There's a lot of people that I know a lot of us are involved in the early childhood field, and this is old hat to us. We know all this already, but it's surprising how little people outside of the sector know about it. So talk with your family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, employers, everyone. Share how important childcare is to your family, the struggles you faced accessing it, and how it's impacted you. We set up the hashtag on the previous page here, Shebco Childcare. If you want to share your stories on social media, super helpful for us as well, because then I have those personal stories from people within these districts when I'm advocating this to our legislators as well. So again, continue the conversation. Kate mentioned too, we have this film available. If you want to share it with your communities, do that too. Set up your own screening. Anything to keep this in the public eye. So,
I was gonna say, we have a Facebook page,
yeah.
Community Partnership for Children. The Family Resource Center team is here. They have a Facebook page. Everybody's sharing. Family Connections has a right. If you see something about childcare counts or Week of the Young Child, Month of the Young Child, share it. Because again, I think maybe the ultimate message also is learning begins at birth. And so it is a professional career that needs to be treated as one. We need to come together to find the solution. Share away, however you do that.
And I want to share too, I'm not just here because it's my job. I'm in the early childhood field and it is my job, but I care a lot about this in our community. I moved to Sheboygan County last year. Decided to make it my home here. I want to see our community succeed. I don't have kids of my own yet, but I'm getting married next summer and we were exactly, that's what I was just gonna say is we had this discussion the other day. If we want kids right away, we need to be looking now and start getting on lists. If this childcare counts program goes away, we're not going to. There's going to be wait lists for years and we're going to have to put off having kids or reduce our hours at work or leave the workforce entirely. So both on a personal and professional level, I'm super invested in this. Hope all of you can be as well. If any of you want to continue the conversation, have further questions, want to get more involved, hunt me down here. I know we have to be out by 8, but I'll get you a business card. You can email me or call me and we can continue the conversation. Anything anyone would like to add?
Colleen, can she hear us? She left.
I can hear you. I'm here.
Well, with that, thank you all again for coming out to learn more about this. I hope you guys all really help educate your communities on this and contact your legislators, let them know how important this is. So, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ryan.
I'm happy to do it here.
That would be wonderful. We really appreciate that. We have shared these with. Yeah, we have shared these materials with the 20+ agencies in our coalition and asked them to distribute them. So, yeah. Great. Colleen, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your vacation. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.